Last episode, we built ourselves a sugarcane farm and hid it in a church. Then we built ourselves a kelp farm and hid it in another building, and that's really helped to pull our island together. This episode, we fixed the church to make it fit in a bit better, terraform a massive area of land in between my island and a local village, and finally get round to hiding our nether portal. So we've certainly got our work cut out for us today. At the end of the last episode, I looked at the church behind me and realised it didn't really fit in with the island as well as I thought it would. And I asked you all for a little bit of help, and boy did you come through. We've had so many ideas and suggestions, I've just been very confused for the last couple of days. But I think I have finally made a decision, and there were a few suggestions of actually turning this into a bit more of a church ruin, as if the church was here before the rest of the village was built up around it. And by doing that, that means we can really break this up. We can get some moss, some leaves in it, we can even patch up bits in the roof, we can even put holes in the roof, who knows? But it will allow us to mix in some extra blocks and really just tie this in a little bit better with the local area. And besides that, I think we're also going to add in a graveyard, possibly on the opposite side here, just to use up this bit of space, and that should hopefully tie this in with the island a whole lot better than it currently is. I've got some moss, I've got some leaves, I've got some mangrove, and we're going to see if we can mess up this church a little bit and see how we get on. I think with a more ruined look, it is definitely starting to tie in a little bit better, but I'm not sold on the mangrove in the roof there where they've sort of patched it up with wood that's available. I think maybe we should actually just switch that out for maybe even just spruce would work quite well, and that will actually tie it in with a lot of this build anyway. But we've still got plenty more to do around here, so let's crack on. Looking a lot better, but we've still got a bit of work to do because I want to sort out the outside as well. But I think the hole in the roof really does give it a bit more character. We've also taken out some bits of the wall and got some fence posts in there as structure to hold it up, and overall I think that's just going to blend in much better with the rest of the island. Next step though is to get a graveyard down over here. A short while later, the graveyard is now finished and this area is looking much better. We've also added a custom tree, we've sorted out the coastline round the back here, so we've actually got some basalt and so on just to try and tie that in a little bit better. And we've also wrapped the graveyard round the back via a mix of sort of open graves, these big ones with monuments, and of course just some standard graves as well. Got to look after the poor folk of this town too. But if we take a quick look at free cam here, we can see the back coastline here is looking so much better, especially with all the basalt and deep slate in of the side. The leaves really work as well for a bit of overgrowth and so on. And with the graveyard, the church looks a lot better as well. I think it just fits in with the island so much better than it did before. So I have actually already recorded all this bit once, but Windows did a reset thing and I lost all the sound. But I did also go to the nether again to go get some ender pearls. But like I said, no sound, so I guess I'm going to have to put my own sound effects on it. The good news is, though, we did manage to get 20 or so ender pearls, so I do have enough to go find the stronghold when we get round to that. We did go hunt some wither skeletons as well, but still no wither skulls, sadly. But the next thing I want to do takes us over here to the other side of the bridge and up onto this field here, which is where we have our portal and the entrance to our spider farm. And if we look just over there, we have the village, which has a couple of villagers we've been trading with, although we really do need to do some work on that. And of course, our island on this side. And I want to tie this area together, which means I need to put a path in from the village all the way through these two bits here, down to the bridge and connect everything up. The problem with that is the landscape over here looks absolutely disgusting. There's craters everywhere, there's holes everywhere, and I'm going to need a buttload of dirt in order to make this a little bit nicer and easier to work with. Because believe it or not, I do have a plan for this entire island, and hopefully we'll have it done by the end of today's episode. And as you can see, it is not a small island, so we'll have to see how we get on. So before we can terraform over there, we need to go jump into a chest boat and go find an island we can destroy first, because we don't really have much dirt or grass, sadly. I feel like we've not been on a boat trip in ages. I've made it back with a whole bunch of dirt and grass, and it's probably not going to be enough to do this whole thing because it is a massive area we need to fix, but we should at least be able to get started. And the main thing I want to do is to get rid of these big holes we've got on the top and just make the landscape look a little bit more natural around here and less kind of destroyed, and definitely these holes here are going to go. My aim is not, of course, just to flatten off this entire hilltop. We do want to grade it and make the landscape look a little bit more natural, but initially, especially these bits here, we will just flatten them off and see where we go from there, really. So I'm going to make a start filling in these areas and holes and whatnot, and I'll see you back here once we've got a little bit of progress done. Run out of grass, but I think we've managed to make a huge difference over here. In fact, if we switch into replay mod, we can have a look at the landscape, and it's looking a lot better than it did previously. But you may notice I've also left a hole in the middle of this area here, and that's because I think I want to put a lake in, and in fact I might do that right now. Let's go grab a bucket, and then we just need to fill this up layer by layer until we have a lake. There we go, much better. A nice pond out the back here. So what are we going to do up here? I think I want to build a small farm, maybe. I'm wondering if we put a farmhouse over here and we'll hide the portal inside that, and then we can have just some kind of an outhouse or something out here, a long drop as one might call it, and that will be our entrance and exit over here. And then we can put some wheat fields all around the area, make it look all countryside-y, maybe even put a windmill up on that hill at the back there. But let's not get too far ahead of ourselves just yet. We'll start off by grabbing some wood, some stone and some other bits and bobs, and we'll get a farmhouse up here. And as we are off that island, it's probably not going to be a mangrove roof and mud walls and so on. We're actually going to do something a little bit different over here to start the transition over to the village. So I don't really have much of a plan for this. I think we're just going to wing it. We'll probably end up actually moving this portal as well. But for now, I just want to get a rough frame down for the building. I think we're going to have a nice little jetty out the back here as well. So let's start placing some blocks and see how we get on. Got the basic frame in for the farmhouse. I think something like that should work. I just need to decide what materials I actually want to build the rest out of. But I think the bottom level here, we're just going to do with a bit of stone to block it out initially, and then we can figure out from there what we actually want to do with the rest of it. Got the stone walls in, and I'm going to try something a little bit different at the top here. I know I said there wasn't really going to be much mangrove over here, but I do wonder if we actually divide the walls up a little bit more. I was thinking maybe we could actually get away with some mangrove walls at the top here. It might end up being a little bit much, I don't know, but let's get it in and see how it looks and make a decision from there. Nope, I don't think that's going to work. That looks way too weird. Not a fan. Before we give up completely though, let's just see if the contrast works a little bit better if we have stripped spruce. No, I'm still not sold. Still not sold. Maybe for another build in future, but certainly not for this one. Let's get all this switched back, and we're going to swap out the mangrove for something else. Probably oak. Yep, I think oak's definitely going to work better for this farmhouse. So the next step is to figure out the roof and get some structural support in down the bottom here. Just get a little bit of detail in, some windowsills and so on. So let's see what we can do about that. Got the roof line down. I've got a few of the details on the front bits here as well, although I think I'm actually going to flip these logs and have them this way round instead. So now we need to get a roof on, and I think I know exactly what I want to use for that, and that is dark oak. So let's get a roof put down. There we go. We have the basic roof in. So I think shape and palette wise, we've got most of it down now. We've just got a whole lot of detailing to do. We've got some texturing and a few other little details we want to put in, such as a chimney, which to be honest, I might put on this bit here. Not entirely sure yet, but we'll figure that out shortly. So I'm going to spend a bit of time just playing around with some textures, some different blocks on here, and see if we can get this looking a little bit more naturalized in the environment here. And I'll bring you back in once we've got something a little bit more interesting to look at. Making some really good progress over here. As you can see, we've got the outside looking a lot better. The farmhouse itself is looking a lot more farmy, and we've also got the first bit of the path down here, but we've still got a long way to go yet, and that means we are not done with the cheesy 80s time lapse yet. First up, I want to sort out the lake, get in a jetty, and get the rest of this bit tied in. Put the cheese back on. too shabby. We now have a small lake out the back of the farmhouse here. We've got a lovely little jetty in there as well. And you may have noticed we also did a lot more terraforming. I went and grabbed myself a bunch more grass, and we've also sorted out the back here, so no more stony shore. The next thing we need to do is to link up this path over to the village and have another path going on that way for reasons we'll get to later. And we need to plant a whole bunch of wheat. So we're going to grab these seeds for our moss farm and maybe get a few on the go as well. And a whole bunch of hoes. Completely run out of seeds, and we've still got so far to go, but it's okay. I think I have a solution. So what we're going to do is quickly make a little contraption here that's going to solve all of our troubles. So let's put a dispenser there, create a grass platform on top, get some pistons on this side here, and some slightly closer on this side here. Put some walls around the edges just so we don't lose anything. Then some chests with hoppers going into the top over here, and we'll just finish blocking off this wall here. Put some redstone across the top here so we can fire all the pistons. And we'll use an etho hopper clock to time those. And if we switch that on, there we go. That's going to shake the floor for us. Then if we go down here with a couple of observers here, that will keep this dispenser firing. And then we need loads and loads of bone meal, of course. So now if we turn that on, that should be very, very loud. But look at all the seeds it's making us. Excellent. I decided to utilize the allays in the end, and they're just zipping about over here and collecting all the seeds, throwing them at me. But my inventory is completely full, so they're all just going straight into the hoppers. Plus, it's good to put the allays to work. About 20 minutes later, we've got almost 2 double chests absolutely packed full of seeds, which is going to be enough to do probably a good chunk of the fields over there. But I'm going to run it for a little bit longer before we get started, and then we're just going to plant a whole bunch more wheat. We're loaded up with seeds and good to carry on with the cheesy 80s montage. Well, I never want to plant another wheat field again, but look at this. So we now have an absolutely massive area of wheat fields. We've also got a little bit of grass and some leaves and the occasional tree dotted throughout. And this is basically just to have a nice transition between the 2 different villages we're going to end up with. Obviously, our island one over here and the main village over here. You may also be wondering about these spaces here and here at the top of the island, and I do have plans for those. We're actually going to be putting a windmill on this side here and then a bridge over to where our tree farm is. And on this side here, we're actually going to be extending out the village and building a villager outpost, let's call it, in a future episode. But if you're ever thinking about planting this many wheat seeds, just don't. It's painful and it takes hours. In fact, if we have a quick look at our statistics here and we look at times used, we can see that we've actually, well, we've killed 45 iron hoes and we've planted almost 12,000 seeds. So yeah, lots of time, lots of effort, but it looks very cool. And it's especially nice just to run along on these paths here. When you've got all the fields surrounding, you may notice that most of it is grown up now as well. I've literally been AFK here for a good couple of in-game days waiting for it to grow, and thankfully we had a bit of rain, which definitely helped, because I have not irrigated this land even slightly. I have, however, made sure to light it up. There are torches hidden under trapdoors throughout all the fields, so hopefully we won't have too many mobs, if any at all. So the last thing to do, of course, is to light our portal, and I've actually put it here in what's probably sort of like a grain store type thing, but yeah, well, we're using it for a portal. So let's get that lit, and let's just double check and make sure it connects where it should. It does indeed. Excellent. Oh, geez, this is so ugly out here. And the interior of the farmhouse is questionable. Let's just shut the door, shall we? And as the sun goes down, sadly, that's all we've got time for on this episode, but we're almost at day 1000, and maybe, just maybe, on the next episode, we'll finally get around to killing the dragon.